Right, good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learnings. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by an double award-winning estate agent, Deborah Richards from Maddisons Residential in Tunbridge Wells. So thank you firstly for your time. I appreciate it's half term this week. Appreciate you've got lovely, exciting things further on in the week and you've still joined me. So thank you so much. I'm incredibly grateful.
Well, thank you for inviting me to do this, Stephen. It's really appreciated.
No, you're welcome. So Maddisons Residential has been going since 2013. You used to work for the Queen or the Queen's Bank, Coutts, and at Barclays. So it's a bit of a change going from a private banker to becoming an estate agent, because what do most people think about estate agents and letting agents? Don't know what they think about bankers as well. But tell us your journey and how you got involved in agency and why you changed.
Yeah, sure. Very happy to. I was a banker before I was an estate agent. I think in my next life, I'm going to work with children that have cancer and be loved, really. But I certainly went from one hated profession to another one that in my mind was equally disliked and distrusted. And that's probably part of what made me make my journey. So if you rewind back, I sort of graduated from university and I just didn't really know what I was going to do with my life and my world. And I had an English literature degree, which was hugely unuseful if you want to do anything other than teach. So I just applied to all the graduate schemes with the banks. And when I'd been going to university, I was going to read law. And then I realised that it wasn't as I thought it was when I watched LA Law, and it was an incredibly boring profession, which wouldn't suit my skill set at all. So I had a sudden change of heart and said to my parents, I'm not going to read law, I'm going to do English literature. And I had a year out, effectively, a gap year. So in that year, I got a job at a local building society. And it was fine. It was like playing tills, which I used to do when I was a little girl, good fun. But what it then meant was when I applied to all the graduate schemes, when I finished university, they saw that I'd done this year in a building society and for some reason obviously thought, well, she kind of knows what she's getting into. And I was literally inundated with job offers. It was utterly bizarre. I was living with a group of 3 girls, 2 of whom were doing economics and got first, and they didn't get a single interview. But I literally had offers from every single main bank. And I can think it was only because of what I did for that gap year, really. And I went to work for the banks and it was very much seen as a kind of well, this will do for now. And I started that when I was 22, and then fast forward, I quite simply hit the age of 40 and thought, well, how on earth did that happen? How did it come that I am now 40 years old and working in an industry that I was certainly never my calling or my passion? And I think when you're young, you think you'll live forever, and then you have some big things happen to you, or you hit some big age milestones and you think, oh my gosh, time is ticking. So I took a decision that I wanted to leave banking. And I really thought, what do I want to do? What is going to make my heart sing? And I'd always loved property. So I had renovated numerous properties off the side of the desk. My previous job was, I did work for Coutts, the Queen's Bank, and I used to go and see my clients. And I'd be really bored while I was talking about their investments. But the minute they mentioned to me they were moving house, my ears would pick up and I'd be like, what are you looking for? Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. So I thought to myself, I think I want to do something in property, but I still love dealing with people. What profession marries those two? I know, I'll be an estate agent. And what I look back on with slight incredulity, actually, was I insane, was that I rather than thinking, shall I just go and see if I like this industry and work for an estate agent and get some experience, I thought, no, I'll set up my own estate agency, which just, was kind of slightly bonkers, really. But, was my sort of way I thought that I could make a difference. I'd bought and sold loads of properties and I thought estate agents were generally either incredibly lackluster or terrible. Dishonest profession, no motivation to act for their client. And of course, working in private banking, it's all about excellent service, delivering great results, doing what you're told to do, being effective and all of that. So I thought, I don't want to work for another estate agent and do it how they've all been doing it. I'll set up my own estate agency. And that's how I did. I went to my husband and I said, I've had an idea. I think I want to set up an estate agent. He was incredibly supportive, very believing, and just said, yeah, do it. So I did. And here I am now.
What a story. So
thank you. Well,
so setting up then, because we've got a lot of people that listen and watch that, you know, are thinking about, should I actually go and set up my own estate agency? You've gone from, you know, literally private banking to, you know, actually going full throttle into it. So what were the lessons you learned from setting up? So you thought you were going to have a problem with your dog. I've got a problem with my dog barking.
Don't worry, that means if mine kicks off as well, we're all good.
They can interview each other. We'll be okay.
Totally. We'll just be quiet and they'll have a bark off. Yeah, that'll be good fun. So yeah, I would say I'm very, very risk averse. So I'd come from an environment where I was salaried, on a very, very good salary, it has to be said. You know, it wasn't like giving up my salary didn't have an impact on our household. So I suppose my biggest fear was that I would blow our money, basically, my husband and I's money. So my one reflection would be I set up too slowly. So initially I worked from sort of serviced off. Well, initially I worked from a room in my house. Then I moved to a shed in my garden. And then I moved to my first serviced offices. It got a bit embarrassing when people would say, oh, can I drop the keys off? And I'd keep saying, oh, yeah, I'm working from home today. And then it became clear that I was not just working from home today, but every day. So I got these serviced offices and we started to get traction, I think. I mean, my initial patch of properties that I would sell was huge because we were on recommendation. So I'd go all over the county and so not very efficient with my time. It was 2 years before I even employed another member of staff. I did everything. And then, you know, when I took on that first member of staff, I was very conscious of their cost and did they make it back? And I think the turning point for me really was in 2017. So that's 4 years after I set up, when I took on my beautiful big premises on the Pantiles, which a lot of people thought I was mad to do because that seemed really counterintuitive with the rise of purple bricks and all the online agents, that I was actually saying, well, no, I'm going to take a high street premises and a very expensive one at that. But for me, it became a bit of a no-brainer because the most common thing that people would say to me two things. One, you're Tunbridge Wells' best kept secret. Well, that's not great when you're running a business. You don't want to be secret. You want people to know about you. Or secondly, I'd very often deal with properties that hadn't sold with other agents. So I would always be the second agent because I would go in and give really proactive advice about why their property hadn't sold and not be scared to have a very uncomfortable conversation regarding presentation or marketing or whatever it might be. And then they would sell. And what they would often say to me is, oh, my friend recommended you for when I first listed, but I'd never heard of you and I didn't know who you were. And I just thought we have got to raise our profile and our brand in the town. And the biggest way I can do that is have a massive piece effective of marketing up in the form of a shop that says we're here. But the shop looks very different to any other estate agents. We've won best most beautiful estate agency office. It doesn't look like a normal estate agent. People come in still now and try and buy a coffee from us, or our lights, because our lights are beautiful. But for me, my office was all about attracting sellers, not buyers. So I haven't got many properties in my window. It's all very open. It's sort of come in, interact with us. And it's got a great spot because it's on the Pantiles, which is a very famous, beautiful part of the town of Tunbridge Wells, where I'm working from. But it goes right through to the London Road, which is one of the busiest roads in Tunbridge Wells. So whether you're walking or driving, you will see our big branding. And that for me was a turning point. My rent went up something like, I don't know, 20,000 a year. But for me, on an average instruction, that's not much to recoup. I didn't need more extra listings. So that would be my biggest advice is, you know, take a bit of a punt actually and go for it. If you believe your proposition is fundamentally different and you need to spread the word, I just grew too organically. And it meant that although it didn't cost my husband and I any great money other than my loss of income, it just took longer to get to where it is now, which is the most dominant agent in Tunbridge Wells for 4-bedroom plus properties. So yeah, just go for it. Don't be scared like I was, I suppose.
Oh my word, brilliant. So now I've got so many more questions to ask as a result of what you just said. So one of the points there, actually, you're a new agent, and obviously if you don't have instructions, you're a little bit stuck. So first of all, how did you go out there? How did you get your, you talked a lot about being recommended, which is absolutely fantastic. Obviously you were the best kept secret, so nobody had actually heard of you. So initially, how, there's a lot of people actually, there's a shortage of property at the moment and agents really need help. So what were you doing when you first started to go out and get properties? What advice could you give?
Yeah, well, as you're probably telling from the theme of me, I didn't invest heavily in marketing, so I didn't do lots of advertising. I didn't do leaflet drops. I didn't do anything like that because I felt I was a newbie in the town, and also I didn't have a name that was associated with a estate agency. I was known very much as a banker in the town, so I didn't really feel I could have any kind of reputation or brand to put on. And the most staggering thing actually that I completely underestimated is the power of a brand. So I'd worked for 2 organisations before. I'd worked for Barclays and Coutts. And my gosh, do those names open some doors, especially Coutts. So I kind of assumed, I remember so clearly, so I had a problem with my business phone line. And they couldn't get it installed in time. And I had this advert going out in a local paper. And it said, new agency launching, exciting new approach, discount your fees when you haven't got a brand. You've got to get in there somehow. So heavy reduction on my normal fee. And, call today for your, I didn't call it a marketplace, whatever I called it back then, something a bit different. And I remember my phone line wasn't working. And I remember literally panicking, thinking this advert's going out. And then they got it in, I think, with about an hour to spare before the next day when this advert went out. And literally I sat there the next day looking at the phone. And then it rang and it was a wrong number. And then it rang again and it was BT checking the line worked. And then it rang again and it was my husband going, how's it going? And it was just, my gosh, was it a depressing lesson? So from that, I thought, I'm not going to advertise. I am just going to whittle away and do this a different way. So in those early days, what I did was I would write very, very specific tailored letters, which I've just started doing again now, actually, as stock is low. And they were really great. So I would pick out 10 properties that were slow movers and that I felt should have sold, but they hadn't sold because of the presentation. Sorry, my alert's going mad. If you can hear that in the background, I'll try and turn that off. So I felt like they should have sold, but they hadn't.
I'm going mad.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get it turned off, but it's just going mad. I felt there was presentation issues. So I wrote very, very individual tailored letters to those people. I invested in land registry. I found out who actually lived there and wrote these very specific letters. And the response of those was brilliant. And what I then did was I would ask for feedback at every step of the process. So rather than waiting to the end to say, what went well, what did you like, can you write me a testimonial? If they felt the way we took on the property or the presentation of the internet listing was really good, I go, thank you so much. Is there anyone you can think of who you've looked at their house, that and it's not, you don't think it's presenting very well and you think we would be good at that? And basically from that very tailored approach and then absolute targeted approach with the existing instructions I had, it just grew like a spider's web. That's the only way I can describe it. It just, one person recommends you to 2 people, they each recommend you to 2 people, and it just grew, as I say, very organically, but I had very low cost, so it wasn't such an issue. But through that real targeted approach that showed that I was a bit different, I did care. And also, I think the reality was then that they'd have this incredibly personal service from me. Oh, there goes your dog again. And I would get results, and they were just thrilled. I mean, they became my biggest advocates, and I still get recommendations now. And then it was things like little things like sending anniversary cards every year, sending birthday cards every year, sending them a Christmas newsletter, doing my weekly vlog and making sure they got that. So keeping in gentle contact with them, that wasn't always kind of, do you want me to come around to tell you what your house is worth now? Because I think people are a lot brighter than we think they are, and they just know what you're up to. And sometimes you've got to just act more like you care than that you're after the deal. So I just did a lot of things. There's a really great jeweler in my town called Harry Collins, who is the Queen's jeweler actually. And every year we've bought a couple of bits from him. And let me just say, it is literally a couple of bits. It's my engagement ring and my wedding ring. And every year we get a wonderful gift from him, and it just locks you in to that person. So yeah, there's a million different things we do on kind of actually selling the property and the whole customer journey. But in terms of growing it, it was just working really hard being hungry for every scrap that you are shown and every door that slightly opens, and making sure that you are the best place, and then you leverage off that as to your best possible advantage. So yeah, I've never done any of the traditional things like leaflet drops or anything like that. So yeah.
And you know what I love? One simple question opening the door.
Yeah.
So you've tailored the approach, you've found the slow movers, you've helped them, you've shown them how to promote the property in a better way, you've got them sold, but also what I think is really simple and great, and it costs you no money, is the feedback question. And just by asking, can I ask you, do you know anybody, friends, family, colleagues, neighbours that are in a similar position to you that feel could benefit and I can help? And for them to say yes, it's such a simple question. It costs you absolutely nothing, and yet it opens the door. I think it's brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah.
So it really is, and it makes such a difference. And for people watching this or listening to it, it's just asking better questions. So what Deborah's just demonstrated, actually, you don't need to spend fortunes on marketing and on canvassing. But actually, ask better questions, and it's amazing. You've built a business.
Yeah.
As you said, it's grown considerably by asking fantastic questions. Love it. Thank you.
And I'm also quite unusual as well in that I charge a higher fee if I'm the second agent. So if I go in, then and I have no issue with that at all, because as I say to them, my job is 10 times harder, because your first 2 weeks of going to market is your honeymoon period. And I've lost that now. I'm working with a property that's a bit stale, that a lot of people have seen, and I've got to try and get you sold. And so their existing agent will be telling them to drop by 50 grand. And if you monetize it for them, say, look, I'll be 1.75% plus VAT. So you're going to pay me an extra 3 grand in fee than you are for your existing agent. But if you do these changes, I'll get your price for you. And then the biggest feedback, the most encouraging feedback we get is we're quoted to be excellent value for money. So although we're quite a pricey agent, especially with our second instructions, we deliver results. And I think don't be ashamed to acknowledge every other industry prices depending on what you're getting. You can't get a basic Audi for the same price if you've got add-ons. You can't go into a hairdresser's and pay for the director at the same rate as what you do for the junior. So value the expertise that you bring and price accordingly. And the minute you start to earn higher margin, then your profitability obviously, gets massively hit. So yeah, I'd only work with properties that I felt I could sell, and I'd be really confident on my fee, definitely.
Okay, that's great. And there's a good friend of the show, Neil Giller, that just put out a post up about value against cost. And I think you've just summed it up, really nicely. Value the expertise you bring.
Exactly.
And I like that. I'm an excellent value for money at 1.75% as well.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Let's just do a little practice then. So, Deborah, thanks for coming round to me today. I love everything you say. But there's an agent around the corner that will sell my property for 1%. Now, as much as I love you, and love everything you're going to do and you're going to bring to it, and I can see the value that you've given, that's a hell of a lot of money, you know. And I don't know what a 4-bed detached property will go for in Tunbridge Wells, but I'm sure it's over £1 million. So, you know, that's a lot of money. You know, that could be £5,000. You know, thanks very much, but you know, it's just too much.
So, Stephen, if I was 1% plus VAT, would you go with me?
Yes.
And why is that?
Because of everything that you offer. You know, I like your marketing. I like the way that you're going to tailor it to, you know, none of your other agents, you know, will tailor it. You are the fourth agent I've had in. I am a fussy so-and-so. So I want to make sure it's, you know, I want to make sure it's right. It's the first time I've sold in 20 odd years. So I just want to make sure. But, you know, I know other people are getting it for less. So why should I be the odd one out?
It's your choice, really. I mean, I notice you've got a nice Mercedes on the driveway, so you understand value. You took a decision with your car that you wanted to pay more for it than afford because you accepted the value that you were getting. Well, you are now selling something that is far more valuable than your car. And do you want to risk that going wrong and not getting your next dream property, or not achieving the best you possibly can, and not proceeding with the best agent in the town of selling your type of property for the sake of £3,000? And how about, Stephen, if I don't sell your property for what I think it's worth, I'll match 1% plus VAT. But if I get above or close to what I think it will go for, you pay me 1.75 plus VAT. So I will put my money where my mouth is if you'll do the same.
Okay, very good. I'll tell you what, I'll either give you 10p in the pound if you get over. How's that sound?
Happy days. I love a performance hurdle. Brilliant. Yeah, and I think it's all those things you said as to why we are more than 1% plus VAT. It costs money, sadly. And we get that not everybody comes with us, because for some people, fee is the most important thing. But for us, it's a whole different proposition. So, yeah.
Okay, well, I know I most probably chucked you in the deep end there, but you answered that absolutely.
Well, I get asked it quite a lot. So
I'm sure you do. And actually, there's a lesson there and there's a reason. I'm grateful that you've done it, because there's going to be people watching this or listening to it where they find it a really difficult conversation to have. So I'm sure at the start, you most probably found it really difficult to have. How did you overcome that? Or were you just, you know what, this is it, I'm just natural, I believe in what we're doing, I believe in our marketing, and actually, more importantly, I believe we're worth this?
Yeah, well, I think there's several things, really. I mean, one of the things that I really wanted was, when I was at Coutts, you had to be invited to join Coutts. So about 70% of potential customers that I would see would not be asked to join Coutts. And people knew that. And that sense of invitation only gave a real sense of prestige for those who were invited to join. And I always wanted Maddisons boards outside your house to be a real badge of honour, that Maddisons doesn't sell anything that's not up to its portfolio standard. So certainly with mine, if someone is really hard on the fee, then I think it's absolutely fine to walk away. Know if you want the instruction, know if it fits with your proposition. And if you've got someone who's hammering you on the fee, then unless price is your proposition, like Purple Bricks, then don't be afraid to say, we're probably not the agent for you. There's absolutely fine. And we can all run around like very busy fools, selling an awful lot of things for a very low value that don't actually make you too much money. I mean, our margins are good at Maddisons because of our fee. But I think as well, for me, it was kind of, if I can't negotiate and hold my fee, then what proof has my prospective seller got that I'm going to negotiate and stand on their price? And if you drop too quickly, it just creates this really weird environment where on the one hand you're saying we'll negotiate really hard for you, and then actually you've gone, okay, yeah, we'll go 1% plus VAT and match it. And you just got to really believe in your proposition. You've got to practice that conversation again and again. I'd normally have exactly worked out for me what the difference is in the fee, and and all those kind of reasons of why we're better. But just start to understand. And the thing is, as part of the valuation, I will always say, what's the most important thing to you about this sale? And they'll possibly say, well, I really want to achieve the best I possibly can, or I've seen this house that I like that I want to get. And you just have to build in the justification of your fee into them achieving their dream, because their house is just a highly illiquid asset, really. That's the reality. It's difficult to sell. It's very complicated, the process. And they need to understand how difficult it is to sell. So yeah, I never have any problem with my fee for a re-instruction, because they're completely disillusioned by the cheaper agent by that point. But it is harder on a new instruction. And I understand when you're in a stock war, it can be very easy to drop your fee, but actually it's when you have to hold your fee more than ever, because if you're not selling so much, you need to sell for a higher price, otherwise you're in trouble. So yeah, practice holding your fee.
Perfect. So this is my favourite bit on negotiation. So how long have you lived in your own home for?
This one I'm currently sat in 2 years.
And did you buy it through an estate agent that wasn't yours?
I did. Cool.
So let me ask you a question. When you bought that property, would you have paid more money?
Yes, actually, yes, a very big agent in the town, who actually mucked up the deal, in my mind, totally. It was a really interesting one that we viewed it. It was perfect. We want to knock it down, so we're about to knock it down. It's all about the plot. And it's a great plot in the town. It's just an absolute dream. So it was, when it launched, I kind of, be still my beating heart, oh my goodness. Whooshed round, liked it, offered the asking price. My husband said, why didn't we negotiate? I said, because we've been told there's 5 other offers on it already. We've just got to be strong. And then because of how the other agent treated me, I got so cross that I withdrew my offer. I was so furious. I could not believe that you could treat a buyer, your dream buyer, actually, we were in rented, all cash, no mortgage, completely flexible, so badly. So I threw my toys out the pram and refused to enter the sealed bids. And the sealed bids then failed, and it came back to market, and I offered 50 grand less than I would have paid for it, and got it with no negotiation.
So there you go. Coming back now, how much more would you have paid?
50,000, definitely, at least.
Now that is massive. Okay, well, let's keep going. 55?
Yes.
60?
Yes.
65?
I'll make it quick for you. We'd have probably gone up to 100 over.
Okay, so let me ask you a question now, Deborah. Who would you prefer to sell your biggest tax-free asset? Me, who's demonstrated in 30 seconds you would have paid an extra £100,000 more, or the agent that cost your seller 100,000?
Yeah, no contest. Good point. Yeah, you.
With the investment in my services is 1.75% plus VAT, and I'm still the cheapest agent, considerably.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, very good.
And I think that's a great way of just demonstrating how good you are at negotiating.
Yeah, very true.
We hadn't practiced this before, had we? Because
no,
I had no idea you were going to come up with 100,000, which is wow, But that just demonstrates, the power of negotiating, and it's
definitely.
It's a easier way of demonstrating how good your negotiating skills are.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, very true.
Right, I just want to come back on so many things that you said. So we're going to be here all day. You've got to go in a minute.
Oh God, poor people.
maybe we'll have to do this again. But you mentioned a word there, or 2 words, portfolio standard. And also that's on your LinkedIn profile as well, and I'm sure it's scattered everywhere on your lovely website. And I also want to talk about your amazing shop that's not a shop that everybody thinks is a light shop or a coffee shop.
Yeah.
But what do you actually mean by portfolio standard?
Well, I suppose when I worked for Coutts or any of the banks with high net worth individuals, I looked at their total picture and their whole asset position, and I found estate agency always very transactional, which I used to find quite bizarre, really, because most people don't have a lot of wealth other than what they've got in their house or their bank account. I recognised that I dealt with very, very wealthy individuals who had money all over the place and often didn't have a home but had property, as I like to call it. So I always felt that estate agency when you're selling someone's house, it should feel like a very intense, short-lived friendship, in my mind, in which your agent is absolutely on your side, a trusted advisor who will tell you when to just do something, who will equally tell you when to hold, and who will always remember who pays their invoice at the end. I always felt too much that estate agency act for the buyer. So I always position myself that I want to be a trusted advisor and have more of a relationship service with my sellers, which is now what I'm seeing. People do come back to me, buyers as well, actually. Buyers will buy through us and then come back to us. And to have more of a service that looks at the total position, and the portfolio side comes very into play much more with the rentals and our rental proposition that we offer. So James, my husband, who has now joined me in the business, who saw this slightly mad idea that I had and has now joined me and heads up our lettings department. And he came from a wealth management background as well. So he was perfectly situated to have a 6-monthly review with all our landlords and evaluate how that asset is doing for them and what's their plan for it. And are they wanting to extend their portfolio? Are they wanting different drivers from what their rental property brings? So to have a very much a portfolio approach when it comes to looking at someone's total wealth position and what they need. So I suppose relationship is more for me what selling is about, but certainly on the letting side, it's about a portfolio driven approach, definitely, to review whether that asset is right for that person.
What's it like working with your husband?
I love it, actually. Yeah, it's great. I mean, he is my best friend in the whole world. And it helps that I love him to bits. So that's always good, I think. We don't have a volatile, fiery relationship. We don't argue very often at all, and never have done. It's not what our relationship looks like. And I suppose when he wanted to join me, it wasn't because he had a massive desire to be an estate agent, which is what I had come from. He came more from kind of, there's a really good opportunity over here, and I could go and drive a part of the business that Deborah's not been able to focus on or not had the desire to focus on. I think the biggest thing it helps with is we both understand each other's pressures. I think, anybody can get home from a really tough day at the office, and no matter how bad your day is, the other person probably thinks their day was worse. And it's that sense of, how was your day? Yeah, fine. But actually it was horrible and you just don't want to talk about it anymore. So I think we both have a very mutual respect for the pressure that we're under and the workload. And I think, he would definitely say he's incredibly proud of me. And that's happened more since he's worked for Maddisons, definitely, because I think he sees on a daily basis what I've created, really, and what he's helped me now drive forward to another level. But he's very respectful. I'm definitely the boss. There's no doubt about that. I run the meetings. So he's very respectful of that. And yeah, it's great. My biggest issue is getting him to switch off, actually, because I'm 10 years in now and I get a bit tired and I don't want to talk about property on a Sunday, whereas he's still very keen. So that's my biggest challenge.
And how do you deal with the pressure and the stress of running a business?
I suppose as a character, I can take on quite a lot. So I'm naturally able to deal with quite a bit of stress. I think I had no idea how busy running your own business would be. I think people go into it and think it will give them freedom, and it does in one way, but it also is like a ball and chain, really. You create a monster that requires an awful lot of looking after. And so I think for me, the biggest stress is the sheer workload and the fact that I always want to do my best. I don't, if I've got 4 offers, for example, that I'm negotiating today, and before I got on this call, I needed them all to know where I'm at with them. So I never stop putting pressure on myself, I suppose, to be the best that I can be. The pressures change. I've now got obviously a big team, and so it's more about management than just juggling an entire business on my own as it was before. But I think I kind of have, the biggest pressure we've got is we've got our surprise 5-year-old, which means that probably when I would now be able to decompress and have time out for James and I, because we've got a 19-year-old and a 14-year-old, We've now got the 5-year-old, but actually she's quite a good de-stress as well. So she makes me go to the park and take her swimming and, you know, stuff like that. But time for me is non-existent at the moment, but that's fine. Isn't that true of so many working people, really? I don't think I'm unusual in that. So
okay, well, there's 2 questions then. Let me come back to that one then. How do you manage to juggle everything?
Yes, I'm just a very busy, organised, efficient person, I suppose. I like to think I run a really tight ship of a home. Washing's always done, cooking's always done. You know, it's kind of all just ticks over. And I think that comes from my mother, actually. She's got a lot to answer for. It was interesting. I was on a call with her on Sunday. We have a weekly Zoom call with her and my sister. They both live over in Dunstable Way, something that's arisen through COVID. And I was drinking a glass of wine. Now, my mum is borderline teetotal, and I'm not a heavy drinker, but I like a glass of wine with I don't drink in the week, I just drink at the weekend, and I have 1 or 2 glasses of wine, and I'm very happy. But I had a glass of wine, and then James topped me up on camera. And my mum said, and this is 5:30 on a Sunday, my mum said, hadn't you better stop drinking? Haven't you got work to do? And I found that really telling. If ever I was lying in bed when I was a young girl, beyond like 10 o'clock on a weekend, my mum would bang the Hoover against the door. I mean, she has instilled in me the strongest work ethic and inability to relax that I think is out there. So, yeah, I'm always busy. If you want something doing, ask a busy person. And I just, lists, be efficient, juggle, get help when you need it. You know, if there's bits you don't like, get help for that. Then outsource. Staff is often the answer and the problem. But yeah, just Peter Knight, actually, I'm a member of Property Academy, and Peter Knight's a great guy. And he's got this really good kind of like agenda where he each month maps out, you know, what time have I had for me, what time I had for my family, what work. And I've started doing that, and that's been really good. So I will think, I've neglected the kids a bit. Let's do this at the weekend. I've neglected James a bit. Let's head off to Rathwilly Wine Estate, which we're off to do for 2 days. You know, so just kind of like give it time to think about and just be efficient and organised.
About your choice management, but you answered that nicely with list, delegates, and outsource. So thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great. So I want to know where this always wants to be the best comes from.
Yeah, probably my mother again, actually. Yeah, I don't know really. I suppose I've always worked really, really hard, and if I've ever wanted to do something, I've always wanted to do it to the best of my ability. I mean, even when I was a waitress working in pubs in North Norfolk, where I grew up, I would wipe down the table and have everything beautifully lined up, and, you know, this nice shiny cutlery. And yeah, I just always want to do the very best I can do. And interesting, an old colleague of mine, when I used to work in Coutts, he used to sit opposite me and we used to get on brilliantly. He used to say to me, Deborah, if you really cared and had a passion for what you want to do, you could be awesome. And I think that was quite interesting, because I didn't have that passion for banking, which I have for selling houses, but I would still always do the best of my ability, but with no kind of real innate desire. And then I think it's that marrying that natural desire to want to be the best with a passion for what I do, and a belief that I'm actually quite good at it. You know, I can go to someone's house and pretty clearly say, this is why it hasn't sold, when they can't see the answer for themselves. So yeah, but I don't know really where. I mean, I've always just been, I'm very competitive, there's no doubt about it. I like to win, I don't like losing. I used to look after, in a previous life at Barclays, I used to be, well, not look after, but I was a PA to the commercial manager who looked after the McLaren team. And Michael Whitmarsh there, who was their sort of operations director when I was there, used to say to be second is to be first of the losers. And that is what they live on in those sort of environments. And I think that's probably quite true of what governs me. I like to do a good job, really. Not the money that motivates me at all. But just, yeah, to know I did a good job and helped someone along the way, I suppose.
Brilliant. So I just want to come back one more question, because I really could carry on talking all day with you, because I think it's absolutely an incredible, inspirational.
Oh, thank you.
I can understand why you were won 2 awards recently at the Women's in Business, which is absolutely incredible. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Going back to your shop, your branch. What do you call it? Your coffee shop, your lighting shop?
Yeah, the shop. We call it the shop.
The shop.
Yeah.
So you talked about it being different. So, you know, and I can understand why you wanted to be different. I'm sure there's loads of estate agents in Tunbridge Wells. It's very competitive there. But why did you go down that route of making it a shop, a lighting shop and a coffee shop? So what have you done? How is it different?
Yeah, it's very different, certainly in its windows. So it's got windows on 3 sides of the building, huge big glazed windows. And we've got very little in them at all. We've got a couple of kind of trendy shelves which have got things hanging off them, but for example, I changed the displays on those with the season, so people come and look at them to see. So it's very autumnal at the moment. And we've got very few properties there, and that was because I wanted it to feel very open. I think estate agents' offices can feel like you're not really allowed to go in because they have this wall of kind of imagery which creates a barrier between people wanting to come in. But the biggest thing I wanted to do and kept my windows open was I was very proud of my big Maddisons logo. I mean, that was one of my proudest moments when on one wall I've got the Maddisons logo and a beautiful mounted sort of silver display, and it looks really lovely. And when that went up, I felt my heart sing. And then I arranged for spotlights to shine on it. And then I thought, I don't want anything obstructing my view of my Maddisons logo. So wherever people come, they can see that big Maddisons logo, because it's about brand reinforcement, really. That was from working for big brands. I knew I had to build a brand, and I'd never done that before. We've simply got running around the bottom of our windows, just the Maddisons logo, but very small. We've got on the top our strap line, which is that excellence is not a skill set, it's an attitude. So that shines there. And then apart from that, it's a very, very beautiful space. So it's a lovely listed building, which helps. We've got exposed brick, beautiful floorboards. But also I'm naturally into interiors. I spent years buying a horrible house and making it beautiful and making a lot of money for it. And if I want my brand to be synonymous with beauty and doing the best you can and making somewhere feel homely and welcoming and like somewhere you want to enjoy being, then I have to live and breathe that. So my shop was very much that as an embodiment. So it is absolutely beautiful. It's been there 4 years now. It's not looking dated, which I find fascinating. And everybody who comes in goes, oh my gosh, this is stunning. So yeah, it's still delivering, and I still love it. We're outgrowing it, there's no doubt about that at all. And my next step will be to get something much more functional, serviced offices, so that we always have our shop front, but then we have other staff working where they don't need to have that same sort of presence, really. But yeah, it's still lovely.
Brilliant. One final question. What do you do work-wise, reading-wise, books that you recommend, podcasts to listen to?
Well, I'm an English literature scholar, so I spent years reading a Shakespeare play a week, a poet a week, and a novel a week. So my literature I listen to now is pure enjoyment, I would say. Podcasts I tend to listen to will be actually quite different to a estate agency. I'm quite interested in health. How you stay fit and active, and I'm fascinated by gut health and things like that. So I listen to a lot of podcasts to do with that. I listen to all the Property Academy things they do. They're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I love diving into the Right Move Hub if I'm going to, and then just picking up from, Simon at Kerfuffle with his great little podcast that he does. I listen to those. All sorts of bits and pieces from the industry. Entertainment wise, I'm an absolute murder mystery fan to the nth degree. I love Agatha Christie, but I love lots of modern murder mystery writers as well. So, but interestingly, I haven't read a book now for about 6 years. I do everything on Audible or listen to it because I run every morning 5K. And that's what I do when I run. I plug in and listen to that. And I feel slightly ashamed of myself that I haven't actually read a book. But yeah, I like having books read to me now. I've had years of reading books.
Well, that is very disciplined. 5K every day. How do you manage that?
Just get into a routine. Set that alarm at 5:20 and get up. And just do it. The minute something becomes a routine, it's easier. And no matter how exhausted I am, if I don't exercise, I'll feel more tired through the day. So it absolutely is that it gives you a kick, gives you energy. I've got a little crew of people that I wave to in the morning when I, pound the streets at 6 o'clock. And yeah, it's just discipline, it's habit, isn't it? Habit, discipline. Don't give yourself a let out, and then you'll do it.
Brilliant. Well, look, I'm so grateful for your time. I
My
can
pleasure.
hear and understand why you're such an exceptional agent and why you put up and won those awards. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I've learnt loads from you. I'm sure all our listeners and viewers will do as well. I think it's been an exceptional 45 minutes well spent. So I'm really grateful for your time. Thanks very much for listening and watching today, or whenever you're listening and watching to it. And Deborah, it's been lovely meeting you. And thank you for your time. Have a good one.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.